Hello and welcome to today's Office Hours presentation. This is Paul Hoyt, your host. Our Office Hours presentation is a relaxed, informal mentoring program that we hold every Monday at noon Pacific time. All the recordings, slides, and exercises are archived in our members area, and all the recordings are available on my YouTube channel at youtube.com/user/Paul Hoyt. The reasons we do these office hours presentations is that we know that being a successful small business owner can be a great experience, but we also know that it's tough. You need education, training, tools, and team in order to be successful, and we want you to get to know us, because when you get to know us, you'll know that first and most importantly, we care about you. We want you to be successful in all areas of your life, whatever that means to you. We want you to find the greatness, the happiness, the divinity that you have within yourself, and then remember it, embrace it, and live it every single day as we try to do. Our passion is to increase the survival rate, accelerate the growth rate, and reduce the struggle rate of businesses in America. And our vision is to help millions of CEOs and entrepreneurs accelerate their business growth and enjoy greater harmony and balance in their lives. You can help us by passing the word along. So if you find these office hours presentations to be beneficial to you, to be valuable in any way, please invite your other business owner friends and entrepreneurs and those who are even just thinking about starting their own business. Invite them to sign up and tune into our office hours presentation. We really do care about small business owners, and that's why we have nearly 100 hours of free entrepreneurial training available at paulhoyt.com. Our office hours agenda is an in-depth discussion of a business success principle. We offer some closing remarks and special offers and an invitation for next week's session. And then we go into open Q&A and coaching. So during today's presentation, if you have some questions or things that you want to have clarified a little bit, or just some things that you want to talk about that may or may not be related to the subject matter of the day, please write them down. You can enter them into the chat log, into the question capability with GoToWebinar, and we'll be happy to talk about them. We also invite you to join us on social media in the Awaken CEO communities on both LinkedIn and Facebook, where we post the business success principle of the day 4 days a week on both Facebook and LinkedIn. And I do an energy of the day posting on Facebook every morning, and I've done it, I think, 714 mornings in a row. It's part of my daily discipline to get up in the morning and say something inspirational or meaningful or insightful to anybody that can listen. We also do an Awaken CEO conversation, which is a different type of webinar, which we do once a month. Right now, our next one is with special guest Christina Forrester on Wednesday, November 18th. That'll be a week from Wednesday. In last office hours presentations, I mistakenly said it was going to be this Wednesday, but it's really going to be Wednesday, November the 18th. So watch your emails for sign-up information. In our Awaken CEO conversation, that is a conversation primarily about personal growth and spiritual growth, where today's office hours presentation is focused on business growth. We also have a comprehensive approach to business consulting, so we also want to encourage people to focus on personal and spiritual growth in their life. Today's topic is on strategic planning, creating your roadmap to success. As always, we try to relate the subject matter of the day to one or more of the key performance areas of business that I defined in my book that I published in 2004 called The Foundation Factor. And today's presentation is all about leadership. It's about your responsibility as a leader of your company to create great plans and then align the team that you have put in place with those plans so that you can get the job done in a much more effective and efficient manner. With the Awaken CEO system, we also provide a balanced and comprehensive approach to business consulting on multiple levels, and we relate the subject matter of the day to one or more of those levels. And today is all about both mindset and methods, about having a mindset of the importance of planning and then having the capability to create those plans, having a process, a system, a procedures in place in order to create great plans, and that's what we're going to help you out with today. In today's agenda, we're going to talk about what is a strategic plan, what is a tactical plan, the value of planning. We're going to offer some insight into strategic planning processes for both large companies and small companies. And we're going to talk about the most important thing, and then we're going to sum it all up with the bottom line. So first topic up today, what is a strategy? A strategy is a plan of action or a policy designed to achieve a specific major or overall aim. It is a careful plan or method for achieving particular goals, usually over a long period of time, and it reflects the choices that you make in order to maximize the long-term value of your company. Your strategic plan then defines your long-term goals and the vision for your business. It creates a plan of action for you to create your goals and to create your vision. And I like to say it is the project plan by which you grow your business. And when we think about strategy, you think about chess. You think about, I could make this move, but then the response might be something like this. And if I do this, I might anticipate another response. If I do this, I might anticipate a response, etc. So good strategy not only sets forth a course of action, but it analyzes and thinks through that course of action, and with potential responses from the marketplace, from the government, from the economy, etc., and makes secondary plans and even tertiary plans based upon those anticipated or possible responses to what you put out into the marketplace. Tactical planning, on the other hand, is short-range planning. It's how you carry out your objectives as opposed to what are your objectives. And usually with tactical planning, we have very detailed, narrow, and actionable tasks. With tactical planning, we typically have SMART goals, and here's my favorite definition of a SMART goal. It's specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time-bounded. And there are a lot of different definitions of the word SMART when it comes to SMART goals, but that's my favorite one. Very specific, meaning we can tell exactly what it is. Measurable, we can know whether or not we have succeeded at this goal. Actionable means it was actually possible for us to take action on it. Realistic means that it is achievable, whether it be a stretch goal or an easy goal, it is in fact achievable. And time-bounded means that we have a due date associated with the goal, and we can measure the progress according to a specific due date. With tactical planning, then, I think it's an absolutely critical part of a strategic planning process, and that no strategic plan is complete without the corresponding tactical plans, because you have to execute a plan in order for that plan to be valuable to you at all. Here's the reasons why we plan. First of all, it's what I call the law of planning, and you can look this up at thelawofplanning.com, which is one of the 17 physical laws of creation that I defined on my wisdom site, thelevelsofcreation.com. The law of planning says simply that planning improves efficiency, productivity, and effectiveness. Thinking it through before acting, looking before you leap, is almost always a great idea. The level of planning required depends on the complexity of the project. Simple projects need simple plans. Massive projects require very detailed and very thorough plans. Other people, of course, have talked about the benefits of planning. Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, and I know I'm butchering that French pronunciation, says that a goal without a plan is just a wish. Benjamin Franklin says, by failing to prepare, we are preparing to fail. That's a little more harsh. And one of my favorites, Yogi Berra, says, if you don't know where you're going, you're going to end up someplace else. So, with a plan, let's figure out where we're going to go and how we're going to get there. We plan to accelerate the growth and increase the efficiency of our growth. We plan to reduce the probability of making mistakes and to determine the resources required and assess the feasibility of a project. I think that one's really, really important, assessing the feasibility of a project. Without a plan, you really don't know what resources are required. Without knowing what resources are required, what investments required in terms of time and money and blood and sweat and tears, you really don't know whether the project is going to give you a return on investment and whether it's even feasible. So we plan to communicate to our partners and to our investors our vision for the company. We plan to clarify and crystallize the vision, which means that during the planning process itself, we have a tendency to have a more crystal clear vision than we had before we went through the planning process. And we also do it to define and communicate the how. So it's what we're going to do and how we're going to get there. In general, we ask these questions. Where are we going? Where are we today? How are we going to get there? And what resources do you need? And in fact, those are the first 4 steps in the Awakened CEO growth process. the Awaken CEO growth process, step number 1 is setting your vision. Step number 2 is determining your status. Step number 3 is creating the plan, and step number 4 is gathering the resources. Then step number 5 for the Awaken CEO growth process is executing the plan that we put in place. But there's other benefits of formal strategic planning engagements. First of all, you want to get everyone's great ideas. If you create a plan in a vacuum or in a closet, you're not going to get the great ideas from your team, and you're not going to get consensus and buy-in. So I'm a fan of formal strategic planning processes, especially at larger companies, so that you can get the ideas from everyone and you can get consensus and buy-in, which improves relationships and improves company morale. And I'm a big fan of facilitated strategic planning sessions because then you get an outsider's perspective. One of my friends at a recent conference gave me the following idea. He said, you know, it's really hard to see the label on a jar when you're inside the jar. And such it is whenever you're creating a strategic plan. It's really valuable to get that third-party perspective, that outsider's perspective, because somebody who's experienced with strategic planning will see things that you can't possibly see for yourself, just as you will see things that they can't possibly see because of your perspective of being in the company and their perspective as seeing the company from an outsider's viewpoint. There are different types of strategic planning processes. There's a process that we're going to go through here in a minute for mature and large companies, and then there's very different processes for smaller companies. I do not see this as a one-size-fit-all process. I do know other people who are strategic planners that just have one process. They just, you know, this is the process, this is how much it costs, this is what we do. And that's fine as long as they're talking to people who really gain maximum value from that one specific process. My experience is, however, that small companies really need and gain great benefit from a much smaller, much briefer, much less expensive process than do very large companies. As we mentioned earlier, small companies need simple plans, large companies need detailed and thorough plans. So let's talk about that large company process. Large company process has several different steps to it. First is confidential interviews, then we do a report of findings, then we have the formal planning sessions themselves, and then we have follow-up and check-in, and oftentimes we end that or follow that up with an optional financial model itself, because I do think that it's really important for you to understand how much it costs to execute a plan before you begin to execute that plan. At the very start of it, we do confidential interviews and findings, and those are confidential interviews with everybody who's going to be engaged in the strategic planning process to give them an opportunity to be heard and to give them an opportunity and the facilitator the opportunity to address issues that are not appropriate for the group and determine the fitness of a company to create and execute a plan. So I've done, gosh, I guess nearly 100 large formal strategic planning engagements for companies, and there have been a couple of times where we found that a company was just not ready to execute a plan. So you do these confidential interviews not just to see whether or not the company can create the plan and is in a position to create the plan, but whether a company is in a position to execute the plan. I remember 2 cases in specific where we determined that the company just simply wasn't in a position to execute the plan. In one case, in our confidential interviews, we discovered that the partners at the company really didn't like each other. In fact, they were almost to hate each other to the point of saying that it was obvious to us that the company had no opportunity to to execute a plan that they created because there was such animosity between the partners. We stepped back from that process and encouraged them to execute a buyout, which they did. And then about 90 days later, after one of the partners had left the company, we came back in and did a strategic planning process with the partner who remained, and it turned out really well. In another case, during the course of the confidential interviews, we found that 5 out of the 6 people that we interviewed at the company who were supposed to be creating the strategic plan and then executing the plan, 5 out of the 6 people were getting ready to leave the company. which meant that even though they might have stayed with the company another week or two and allowed us to create the plan, there was no hope of executing the plan, and we did not go forward with that. We recommended to the person who owned the company a lot of things. I don't think any of which that were paid attention to, but anyway, we took our opportunity then to bow out of that engagement and not complete the strategic plan because it would have been fruitless and pointless to do so. And like we say, the objective of creating a plan is to get the results that you want. If you find out at any point in time during the planning process, at the first step, second step, anywhere, that you're not going to be able to get the results that you want, it's maybe time to take a time out and step back and abort the process. After we do the confidential anonymous interviews to give people a chance to express, then we have a report of findings where we take and summarize these confidential and anonymous findings into a discovery document that we use in the first part of the planning sessions. By the way, during this time, I've also had people say, give us a lot of confidential information about how somebody was doing with their job. So we've had presidents tell us that they were about to make a decision to let go of their CFO. We've had, vice presidents of sales tell us that, the president was in the way. We've had a lot of things talked to us during these confidential interviews that were just not appropriate to bring up during a general planning session, or that somebody was afraid to bring up during a general planning session because of the outburst which might be triggered. During the formal planning sessions, they're typically off-site and focused. And off-site and focused means that we go to a conference room at a hotel, typically, not at the company's headquarters, because people get interrupted too much at the company's headquarters. And it's a very focused conversation, typically for 2 or 3 days, where everybody gets an opportunity to speak up, everybody gets the opportunity to listen to other people, everything that needs to get discussed is discussed, everything is recorded, and we have brainstorming, consensus, and buy-in are the primary objectives of these planning sessions. During the planning sessions, we talk about values of the companies to make sure that we're all on the same page about what our corporate values are, and by the way, which really becomes a very bonding moment for the people who participate in the planning sessions. We talk about the vision for the company, and in many cases, it's the first time that a company has an opportunity to express their vision statement about the company that they want to create and who they want to become and what they want to experience. We talk about long-term and mid-term goals. Where do you want to be in 50 years, 10 years, 5 years, 2 years? We talk about your history and your significant achievements and the progress that you've had so far. We talk about the current products and services that you are bringing to the marketplace and the current markets and industries that you serve, and any trends and opportunities and risks that you see in those trends with the marketplace and the industries that you serve. And then we discuss a product development roadmap. What do you have on your plate right now for developing new products and bringing them to market? In typically the second day of the off-site strategic planning session, we talk about market positioning, market expansion opportunities, a SWOT analysis, which stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. We take a really critical, objective, and honest and authentic look at what's working and what's not, and frankly, who's working out and who's not, who is excellent in their positions and who is not doing excellent in their position and needs to find another position within the company that they can be excellent in, or who needs to be given an opportunity to be excellent elsewhere, which means outside the company. Then after we've talked about all of that stuff, we begin to define our high-level growth strategies and our critical competencies and success factors. Then in those planning sessions, we go through the key performance areas one by one and talk about our plan for improving leadership, our plan for improving our functioning marketing department, our plan for increasing our capability to effectively deliver the products and provide great customer service. And we talk about the plans for increasing sales, etc. And as a result of going through these 7 key performance areas in detail, we develop sub-strategies. We develop a marketing strategy, a product development strategy, and a revised product development roadmap. We develop a sales strategy. How are you going to sell this stuff? Are you going to do it through a direct sales rep through manufacturers' representatives, and what outlets do you see for your products. We talk about an infrastructure and operations strategy, a facility strategy, a partnership and alliance strategy, a financial strategy, and a service strategy, because all of those things are very, very important to taking your long-term goals and objectives and turning them into tactical plans. In between the tactical plans and the long-term plans comes what we call a phased growth strategy, and that is a trademark of the company that we have, of the Hoyt Management Group. In the phased growth strategy, we take this long-term plan, or at least the first 24 to 36 months of our long-term plan, and break it into phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. In this example, phase 1 of the growth is 3 months, phase 2 is 6 months, phase 3 is 12 months. In phase 1, we're going to have 2 products, A and B. In phase 2, we're going to introduce product C, and in phase 3, we're going to introduce product D. We expect sales in phase 1 to be 100,000, sales in phase 2 is 500,000, sales in phase 3 to be 1.5 million, and we're going to add to our staff at each phase of the plan as well. Creating the phased growth strategy became a very natural thing to me from my experience in creating very large information systems projects in the early 1990s. What we found was that if you had a $5 million project that you were going to create, if you didn't deliver significant value very quickly, and we tried to deliver significant value every 90 days, that you've stood the risk of getting a couple of years into the project and having invested a couple of years of your life, and the company invested several $1 million of their money, only to find out that the plug gets pulled and they abort the project because they don't see the value in it and they don't want to go on. The way that you keep that from happening, and the way that you deliver incremental value to your investors and to everybody at your company and to your entire ecosystem, is through defining your long-term growth into different phases of growth and implementing a phased growth strategy. With a phased growth strategy, you see a lot of detail in phase 1, not so much detail in phase 2, and even less detail in phase 3. But it gives you a very, very good idea as to how you want to proceed. Then the third step in the phase, or in the planning process, or the next step rather, is to create the 90-day plan that roughly correlates with phase 1 of your growth. If phase 1 is 6 months long, then the 90-day plan is only the first 90 days of that 6-month plan. But typically, those phase 1s can be shorter than 6 months too. So a 90-day plan may be an entire detailed plan for the first phase of growth. In that 90-day plan, we focus on the top 3 to 5 goals and all of the supporting tasks that are necessary to get those goals accomplished month by month, and then with detailed assignments to individuals and due dates. And then we also talk about all the other key performance areas of business and what you're going to do at the company to grow the company outside of the things that you're going to do to accomplish those top 3 to 5 goals. This 90-day plan focuses the company on doing the things that are necessary in order to achieve their long-term goals by focusing on the things that are necessary to achieve their 90-day goals. After we've created the 90-day plan, then the last part of the strategic planning process that we use for very large and mature companies is to do follow-ups and check-ins. So typically we follow up with the executives every week or every month, and or quarterly in some cases, but we prefer to follow up more often than that. We also do senior and mid-level management coaching and execution support to assist those people at the company whose performance is critical to the execution of the plan, to help them make sure that they're making great decisions, that they're solving problems quickly, that they're overcoming the obstacles that are in their path, so that they can keep the momentum up and meet the deadlines and the goals of the plan. And then we usually have quarterly adjustments, but we always have an annual replan. I think both of those, by the way, are very essential. Big companies do it as a matter of course. They take their annual plans, they take their strategic plans and convert those into annual plans. They take their annual plans and convert those into quarterly plans, which gives them a 90-day plan for this next quarter. And then at the end of that quarter, they raise their head up above the water and they create a new quarterly plan. And at the end of this conversation today, we want to tell you about our Brilliant Business Planning virtual event that we do once a quarter. And we're going to have one coming up in December where you'll get an opportunity to create your annual plan for 2016. That's coming up in the month of December. I'm not sure of the exact date, but we'll cover that when we get to the end of our conversation. As mentioned earlier, when we talked about long-term plans, you may want to create a financial model once you create your strategy, because you really do need to define the cost of expansion, especially if you need cash or investment capital to expand. It's required oftentimes if you're raising capital, because you have an obligation to fairly disclose to your investors what you're going to use the money for and the use of proceeds. And I think it's a really good idea to have an investor-grade financial projections done if you're raising capital or if you need to get cash in some other way. And those investor-grade financial projections are month-by-month income statement, balance sheet, and cash flow, because it's then and only then that you can tell what your true cash requirements are. What I've found many times after having done, 150 or so, I think, financial models, is that we almost always alter our plans once we do the financial modeling process. We find out that, hey, if we introduce product C before product B, that it would conserve cash, that really is something it's the lower hanging fruit and would probably be a good idea. So always we adjust the plans either in a very large way or in a very small way whenever we polish the plans by putting a financial model at the end. So that is the 5-step process that we use here at Hoyt Management Group and that we recommend whenever we're working with large and mature companies who can afford to spend the time, and it's really the right thing for them to do. We do the confidential interviews with everybody that's going to participate in the planning process, and even some of the people who are not. We do a report of findings at the beginning of our typically 2, sometimes 3-day offsite planning sessions. And after we've created the planning sessions, which have the long-term plans, the mid-range plans, the phase growth strategy, and the 90-day tactical plans, we do follow-ups and check-ins and usually an optional financial model at the end of that. That's what we do for large companies. Does everybody need this process? Not only no, but heck no, because what I found is with small companies, if you take them through this process and you create a very long and very detailed, complex project plan and hand that to the CEOs, the entrepreneurs of the company to execute, they simply can't do it. Small companies and inexperienced CEOs need smaller plans and simpler plans that they can really execute in order to be successful. If you give them an elephant to eat, they're not even going to be able to begin to eat that elephant one bite at a time because they don't have the experience and don't have the resources to do so. So with small companies, we have much different planning processes. They're still strategic in the sense of being long-term and being thoughtful, but they're not nearly as complex and they don't take nearly as long to build. In fact, you can develop a small company strategic plan in 2 or 4 or 8 hours. You can have a very simple phased growth strategy in a matter of 90 minutes. You can create a 90-day plan in another 90 minutes and another 90 minutes with the budget. You can create a long-term plan, a mid-term plan, a short-term plan, and the budget associated with that short-term plan with just 6 or 7 hours worth of very focused planning. But usually we always stress to have monthly or quarterly follow-ups. In fact, some companies are so small that you can create a strategic plan in a matter of just a few minutes. I want to give you an example of one of those. Hot dog stand. If you come to me and say, Paul, I want to create a hot dog stand. I've always wanted to have a hot dog stand, and I'm just going to go for it. What should I do? I can give you about an 8-step plan or a 7-step plan that will help you create a hot dog stand very, very quickly. First, we want you to pick a fun and simple brand that you can trademark and expand with. I want you to find a great location. I want you to offer a variety of hot dogs and condiments. I want you to sell candy and soft drinks and other high-margin products to dramatically increase your profitability. But I want you to show up every single day and be happy for and with your customers. I want you to focus on the experience the joyful, incredible, wonderful experience of somebody buying and eating a hot dog at your hot dog stand, and I want you to listen to your customers and focus on your relationships. There you go. That's a 5-minute or less strategic plan for having a very profitable business with a hot dog stand. Now, there's a detail to that plan, of course. That's buying the cart, figuring out what hot dogs you're going to offer, what brands you're going to offer, figuring out the details of the merchandising, what other products you're going to offer, and how are you going to display those products. How are you going to get the licenses and get the approval from the local food handling permits, etc. So there's details associated with that, but those are the detailed, tactical, very tactical planning. The strategic planning, I think, stands on its own with these 7 or 8 steps that we defined here. Medium-sized companies need something in between, of course, in between a very small company process like the one that we just defined for the hot dog stand and the very large company process that we use with multi-million-dollar companies. The medium-sized processes contain some of the elements of the large company plan, but not all of them. They could be 1 or 2 days, but they're very simple in comparison to the very large company plan. The most important thing about planning is that it's not about the plan. It's about achieving your desired outcomes. The plan that you create is a tool. It's not the end game. Your job isn't finished whenever the plan is created. Your job is just starting. And as one of my favorite mentors shared with me, a mediocre plan well executed is far superior to a complex plan that sits on the shelf, because your success comes from your execution, comes from your ability to execute the plan. Your success is 1% the vision that you have, 2% the plan that you put in place, and 97% your ability to focus on the plan and get the job done day after day after day. From a graphics point of view, that's what it looks like. Excuse me, let me go back to that. It looks like just a little bit of your success is in the vision, a little bit more of your success is in the plan, and 97% of your success is in the execution. It's in your ability to adapt, to overcome, and to focus and get the things done and execute the plan. One of my favorite sayings is that if you can't execute a 90-day plan, you've got no hope whatsoever of executing a 5-year plan. At some point in time, you have to take your eyes off of the long-term prize and put your focus and attention on what has to be done today. Do what has to be done today in order to meet your 90-day goals so that you have a chance of meeting your long-term goals. So focus on the tasks at hand. Do them well, do them quickly, and then move on. Here's the bottom line. The bottom line is, if you want to be efficient in growing your business, get a strategic plan and always complete the strategic planning process by creating your corresponding mid-range and tactical plans. Hold people accountable for doing their part, the things that they've agreed to do in the execution of your plan, and get coaching and support to help create the plan in the first place and then to help execute the plan. I really believe it's essential. That's been our agenda for today. We talked about what is a strategic plan. We talked about a tactical plan. We talked about the value of planning, the different types of strategic planning processes there are, the most important thing, which is execution, and the bottom line. So your homework and your exercise is to think about what level of planning you need and what your budget is to create the plan and your budget is to implement the plan, because that's really important. If you only have a small budget to create a plan, then a simple plan may be appropriate. If you only have a small budget to execute a plan, a very simple plan may be appropriate. On the other hand, if you've got $1 million company with 100 employees, then I think it's very appropriate for you to have a much more complex and thorough plan created by a much more detailed and robust planning process. And get a strategic planning specialist to assist you in that process, because I think that's really essential. And then your homework is to create the plan, whatever level of plan is appropriate for you, and execute, execute, execute. We're going to go into questions and answers and live coaching here in a minute. where we invite you to make comments and ask questions related to the subject matter of the day and then any other issues you want to talk about. Tell me what your biggest takeaways are and what insights you gained from this presentation, and tell me what you're going to focus on. If you're on the line, you can raise your hand and we take it off mute and we can all hear your voice. Otherwise, you're welcome to type your questions into the chat log, into the question box of the GoToWebinar control panel so we can address that. Here at the Hoyt Management Group, we focus on support services of 3 different kinds. In some cases, we will teach you how to do it, such as these training and education programs like the office hours. We can show you how to do it yourself. But we oftentimes like to do it with you. We help companies create strategic plans. We help companies create financial models. We help companies create and write business plans, and we help with mentoring and advice to help them make decisions so that they can create the business of their dreams. And in some cases, we actually do things for you. Feasibility studies, funding evaluations, market research studies, sales scripts, product development, or product funnel creation, etc. are some of the things that we will actually do for you. As consultants, we put our fingers on the keyboard and deliver documents and deliver spreadsheets to you to help you grow your business. Our next office hours will be next Monday, November 16th. I haven't decided what I'm going to talk about yet, but would like for you to tell us what topics you would like for us to address by going to paulssurvey.com. And in between now and the next office hours presentation that we do your homework and consider joining us for our next Awaken CEO conversation. In this case, it's going to be an interactive webinar with Christina Forrester on November 18th, Wednesday at 6 p.m. Pacific time. Watch your email for sign-up information. Once you sign up for an office hours presentation, you're automatically enrolled in all subsequent presentations. Once you sign up for an Awaken CEO conversation, you're automatically enrolled for all subsequent conversations. With that, I want to go into our open Q&A and coaching. First, again, comments and questions on the topic of the day, and then any other issues that you would like to address. My contact information's there, so we'd love for you to share with us what insights and takeaways you had. If not here on the call, then by contacting us, by giving us a call, or by going to schedulepaul.com or schedulegrowth.com and letting us know what it is that you would like to focus on and how we can be able to help you in growing your business. So with that, I'm going to open it up to questions and comments on the subject of the day, and then anything that you want to talk about. Stephanie, do we have any questions and comments for today?
Yes.
Okay.
First question. How do I know what kind of strategic planning process I should use?
I think the answer is twofold. Number one, it really depends on your budget. When we here as business consultants know that oftentimes people who are experienced in working with business consultants know that business consultants almost always recommend that you spend money on the other side of the consulting engagement. In fact, that's your intention most of the time, is that we have some resources, we know we need to gather resources, and we know that we need to be able to invest, in the growth of our company. But if you only have $1,000, it doesn't make sense to spend that $1,000 on a planning process and then have nothing left over to execute the plan. If you have, $200,000 and you want to invest in the growth of your business, or that you want to raise capital for your business, then it makes good sense to invest in a reasonably sized planning process that gives you some very good plans as to how you might want to spend the money that you have or spend the investor's money that you intend to raise in order to grow your business. So I think the first consideration is the budget that you have to create the plan and the budget that you have to execute the plan. All too often, I've seen companies who are just getting started with their process of raising capital. They've only got a few $1,000s in cash and another $10,000 in credit, but they make the mistake of spending $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 up front with all of their cash and borrowed capital to create great plans and great brands for their company, and then they've got no capability of actually moving forth and executing those plans. So always take a balanced approach based on where you are, where you want to go and what resources that you have at your disposal to determine what level of planning is appropriate and how you want to plan to spend the precious resources that you have. So I think that's kind of answer number two is, or answer number one. Answer number two is that work with an accomplished professional who knows what they're doing. If you're talking with somebody and they've only got a one-size-fits-all mentality, they're not likely to be able to recommend to you an appropriately sized planning process for your company. What they're most likely will do is try to encourage you to engage in their specific planning process. You know, we do a strategic planning process. It's 2 days off-site, either at your location or at our location. We fly in to see you or you fly in to see us, and it's really what you need to do in order to grow your business. It's a great next step for you. And my big problem with one-size-fits-all consultants is that they are heavily influenced to persuade you to engage in their process instead of being heavily influenced to find a process that is right-sized for your particular company today. So find somebody who can help you figure out what the process is that's just right for you and that takes into consideration your time and your budget when it comes to creating that plan, I guess, is a sum up of those. Next question, Stephanie.
Okay, could you talk a little more about the market search?
I'm going to talk about market research because that's, you know, an essential part of a planning process and an essential part of an execution process. One time I remember that I was working with a company and we got through with day one of the strategic planning process. And what we found when we began to broach the subject of competitive positioning and market research was that the company really didn't understand where the industry was right then, what the market trends were, what the opportunities and risks were in those trends, and who their competitors were and what their competitive positioning was. So we actually suspended day two of the planning process and said, you know, let's not, we did the first day on a Friday, we were going to do day two on a Saturday, but at the end of day one, we found out that the company didn't have the knowledge that they needed in order to continue with the planning process, and we postponed a couple of weeks to go back and do market research. So market research, and I apologize if I had a typo on the slide, I meant market research instead of market search. But market research entails doing the things that we just talked about. It's understanding the market itself, what market that you're playing in, the dynamics of that market. Is it growing or is it shrinking? Who the major players are in that market, what customer base the market serves, and the trends of those customers and the profiles of those customers, and then understanding what your relative positioning is within that marketplace. Because when you create your strategic plan, a crucial part of the strategic planning process is to understand what your value propositions are. In other words, why will your customers buy your stuff? And to also understand what your competitive positioning is so that you understand how you can position your products in your marketplace in order to appropriately communicate your uniqueness and your differentiators. So market research is really, really important, especially if you're bringing innovative products and services to market. A couple of office hours ago, I did an office hours presentations on Will It Fly, which was a 43-point checklist and scorecard for companies that were bringing innovative products to market. And I think it was just last week or the week before we talked about the lean startup methodology. It was 2 weeks ago. We talked about the lean startup methodology, which is a specific planning process and strategic growth process for companies that are bringing new products to market. So we want to incorporate, scorecards like the Will It Fly scorecard and processes like the lean startup methodology into a strategic planning process whenever you're bringing new products to market. And a critical part of those is that market research. In fact, the lean startup methodology, step one of the process is to get out of the building and talk to the people that you think are your potential clients so that you can find out who your clients really are and what they really want to buy. before you spend too much more money on developing the products that you're planning on developing. So market research is a very important part of the planning process. In other words, you kind of need to have a lot of market research done before you create the strategic plan, and then it's a very important part of the execution of your strategic plan itself. You should have, as part of the strategic plan at every phase of growth, some sort of market feedback task or goal that allows you to get out and really understand who your customer is and what your customer wants, so that you can adjust your plans, so that you can pivot in terms of lean startup methodology and create plans that will allow you to create a more effective and profitable business going forward. Hopefully that answered your question on market search or market research. Stephanie, do we have other questions for us today?
About how much does it cost to create a strategic plan?
We have a wide portfolio of strategic planning services here at the Hoyt Management Group. On the very high end, we've offered proposals and had proposals accepted from clients that were in the $30,000 range. That $30,000 range for that company was the largest one that I participated in, was allowing 15 different confidential interviews with people who are intended to participate in the strategic planning process. So if you're talking to 15 people over the course of an hour each, that in itself was a couple of days of consulting at least. Then we had another half day on our budget for consolidating and summarizing the results of those confidential interviews. Our strategic planning process was 3 days, which was on-site, not on-site, but at a conference room at a hotel off-site, which they wanted us to hire. So we were obligated for the hotel, and we made all of the arrangements for the hotel, and there was food catered in, and there was airfare associated with that. And then once we created the strategic plan, we did a financial modeling process on the other end, and included in that $30,000 proposal was also the quarterly updates, monthly calls with some of the executives, and an annual replanning process. So it was a very thorough and comprehensive process, which, by the way, was exactly the right thing for that size company to do. They gained a tremendous amount of value from it. In fact, they said afterwards that had they not gone through that strategic planning process, they would probably not still be in business a couple of years later, because we did the process for them in 2006. We set forth a plan for that company that allowed them to add high profit, high margin products to their product line. And they said specifically, had they not engaged in that process, that they probably would have gone out of business in the recession of 2007 and 2008. On the other hand, for very, very small companies, it could be that you just benefit from a couple of hours of conversation. An hour-long conversation, or a couple of sessions rather. A session, a 90-minute session to really talk through the business in a business clarity questionnaire and a business clarity session, and then another hour and a half to go through and create a very simple 90-day plan that you can go forth and execute. We have a variety of different products that deliver exactly that sort of planning process. Our silver package list price is $1,000. We usually try to get people to upsell or upgrade to the gold package, which is list price is about $1,500. That's 4 90-minute planning sessions, or actually 5 90-minute planning sessions. In session number 1, we do the business clarity questionnaire. Session number 2, we talk about long-term strategy. Session number 3, we do a business foundation profile. Session number 4, we do a 90-day growth plan. And session number 5, we do a budget associated with the 90-day plan. So that's, a $1,500, sometimes $1,700 process, depending upon the number of people engaged in it and how long it goes. That's just exactly the right thing for, a small company who has some resources to spend to go through. So on one hand, we have a $30,000 process, which was exactly the right thing for a very large company. On the other hand, we have a $1,000 process or a $1,500 or $1,700 process that we go through for smaller companies, which is exactly the right thing for them. that allows them to define their goals and objectives and have a real life strategic plan in place and a tactical plan that they can go forth and execute, and a budget associated with that plan so they know how much it's going to cost them to execute the plan that they put into place. Those are the ranges that we do for strategic planning processes. Hopefully that was helpful. Stephanie, next question.
Okay. Execution is a problem for me. How do I improve that?
That's a very good question. And first of all, I want to honor you for noticing that execution is a plan. There are some CEOs and entrepreneurs that are primarily visionaries and creative people and relationship people, but they have a real hard time when it comes to analysis and implementation. We want to honor you for your visionary capabilities, for your creative capabilities, for your relationship capabilities. But what that means is I certainly recommend a twofold approach. First of all, get somebody on your team who can help with the analysis and implementation. That's why we hire people who have a COO mentality, a get the job done today mentality, or an analysis capability or mentality to help us create great plans that can help us efficiently execute the plans and efficiently execute our plans. So if you have a problem with execution, I'd say number one piece of advice is get somebody on your team that loves implementation. There are people out there who just love to go into the office every single day and to have a 100-point checklist sitting out in front of them so they can just check it off, check it off, check it off, check it off, check it off. It's what floats their boat. It's what makes them feel very excited. They get energized and excited about seeing 100 things that are sitting right there in front of them that they can just do one after the other. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this when it's tough, and I'm going to get the job done. And you want people like that on your team. I got a little bit of that in my heart and soul too, that love for checking things off and getting things done. So number one piece of advice, if you're having a problem with execution, is to get somebody on your team who can do that. But number two is even more important. As a CEO or an entrepreneur, you cannot abdicate your responsibility to get some things done. Some things that need to be done, you have to do. You have to hire the right people. You have to have those tough conversations. You have to learn how to sell. There are some things that you absolutely can't delegate and you can't abdicate to others. And if you're having a hard time getting those done, then get yourself a coach who can help you find a system and put processes in place that work for you to help you get the things done that you absolutely have to get done. It could be that, every night before you go to bed, you create a plan for the next day. It could be that every morning when you get up, you create a plan for that day. It could be that once a week you do a planning process for that week. It could be that you get a call from your coach every single morning at 7:30, or an accountability partner every single morning at 7:30 that tells you, it reminds you what it is that you're committed to focusing on that day, and you don't do anything else until you get the things done that you absolutely have to get done. That you don't take on any easy tasks until you've taken on the hardest task that's on your list of things to do. So there's a lot of things that you can do to shift your mindset with proper methods so that you can increase the momentum at which you grow your business. And for those of you who may not recognize it, those are the three different levels of performance that we teach with the Awakened CEO system. It is all about your mindset of I can do this, I will do this. It's all about the methods of finding plans and processes and procedures and techniques that you can use to help you focus your time and attention so that you can get the job done, so that you can get your company into momentum, get yourself into momentum, and so that you can achieve more and more things at your company, increase your effectiveness, increase your productivity and efficiency at your company. So great question. Thank you for asking that. Next question. I got 12:57, so I think we got time for one or two more.
Can I create my own strategic plan?
The answer is yes, you can. Especially if you're a solopreneur. If you're a solopreneur, you can create your own strategic plan. You can think it through. You can say, this is where I want to be long term. You can think about the milestones along the way and the progress that you have to achieve along the way. And then you can think about your own 90-day plans and your own tactical plans and go forth and execute that. So that is entirely possible. And I've met, if you are a solopreneur, if you are a person who's gifted at both analysis and implementation, and you don't have to be, excellent or perfect at those things, you just have to have a competency at that. You may find that you are very competent in creating and implementing your own plans. Where that breaks down is if you've got other people on your team. If you've got other people on your team, as we mentioned in the body of our conversation, you'll get a better plan with their ideas, because God doesn't give all of the great ideas to just one person. You'll be surprised at the number of great ideas that person sitting across the table from you will have that you would never have had yourself. So you'll get better ideas if you involve the rest of your team in the plan. But even more importantly than that is that they will buy into the plan. It doesn't become your plan, it becomes our plan. And when it becomes our plan, they're going to be much more committed to the process of executing the plan. And where it becomes even more handy than that to have a facilitator to help create the plan is in a couple of different situations. Number one is if you've got, I would say, more than 2 or 3 people involved in the planning process, you'll want to have a facilitator in to make sure that everybody participates in the planning process fairly, so that you can get that outsider's perspective. If there is a contentious relationship between the people who create the plan, if they don't get along very well, if you have a tendency to go into argument or confrontation, then it's really important for you to have a facilitator who can help manage and control that process, who doesn't get caught up in the arguments or the dissension. I have done that, by the way. One of the plans that we almost didn't create was with a couple of partners that just flat didn't get along. In fact, they told me during the confidential interviews that they passed each other in the hallway for a couple of years and really never said hello to each other. They didn't. They communicated via text and email, and really, frankly, didn't like each other. And their biggest concern in doing a strategic plan was whether or not it was going to blow up into arguments. And my job as the facilitator of that was to make sure that each party was fairly heard, that each party listened to the other party, that they were able to have discussions so that they could reach an agreement and reach some consensus and reach resolution on conflicts that have been festering for years. And that's exactly what we did. It was a very, very interesting process. But I'm proud to say at the end of those 2 days off-site that they shook hands, that they agreed on a plan, and they began speaking in the hallway, for the first time in years. So that's some of the value of a facilitator too. So yes, you can create your own strategic plan. If you're a solopreneur, you can create your own plan, with 1 or 2 other people if you're gifted at analysis and planning. But if you want to make sure that the plan is comprehensive, if you want to make sure that everybody gets an opportunity to participate, if you want to make sure that everybody has bought into that plan, and if you see the value in having a planning process facilitated by an outside party who will have ideas that you couldn't possibly have for yourself, then I strongly encourage you to engage in a strategic planning process with the talent of a facilitator. And of course, we're very, very happy to throw our hat into the ring when it comes to helping you create your strategic planning process. And for those of you who are a member of the Quick Start program, we are going to do a group coaching session, a virtual 1-day virtual planning event coming up in December. I don't think the date has been set right yet, or at least I can't remember what the date is. I think we have tentatively set it for, what was it? Oh, it's December the 5th. So on December the 5th, and that's coming up pretty quick, that's only 3 weeks away, that we're going to have a virtual 1-day strategic planning process. It's actually only about 4 or 5 hours, which may get you started on your plan for 2016 and help you do that a little bit. So we encourage you to think about that and tune into that. If you're listening to one of these recordings, or if you decide a longer strategic planning process might be appropriate and helpful for you at your company, we certainly invite you to give us a call, to send us an email. We'll send out the link to that virtual event when we send out the recording to this office hours presentation, and we'll put it on the Tribe portal as well so that anybody can go and sign up for that. And I think that brings us to the end. We're a little bit over time. I thank you all who attended for sticking with us to be just a minute or two over past the top of the hour. We love doing these office hours presentation and sharing with you what we've learned in our 50 years of working in business. We invite you to come in to join us for our next office hours next Monday and for our Awakened Conversation a week from Wednesday. And until we meet again, this is Paul Hoyt reminding you what a marvelous and magnificent person you are and wishing you a marvelous and prosperous day. Bye-bye.